Okay. All right, well, let's get started. I'm sure that more will come in as we continue. The first thing I want to tell you is last week I was so excited about saying the name Mephibosheth that I told you the wrong person. All right, Mephibosheth is incorrect. That's Saul's son who was crippled, son or grandson who was crippled, who David took care of and shown kindness to. The king who was the last descendant of David, who was the last one of the line left, was named Joash. And he's described in 2 Kings 11:1. This is when Athaliah tries to kill all the descendants of David so that no descendant of David could ever be king again. And one of them is hidden away, and his name is Joash. And it's Joash who is the one you need to think of when you're thinking of the devil standing in front of the woman trying to devour her offspring, trying to get Jesus before he could be born. So think Joash. We okay with that? Now let's bring us up to date on where we are. We're at a pretty exciting time because let's summarize where we've been. Okay, the first thing we did was we saw all the churches, and we saw that they have really two problems. Do you remember what those problems were? They are persecution and conforming to the culture. And those are the things that the book of Revelation is trying to deal with, is how you not conform to the culture that you're in and still remain a Christian, or if you're undergoing persecution, how you still remain a Christian. Everything in Revelation centers around answering those two things. Now, then we saw the seals that were opened. And you see, the people are asking, as Christians we ask, why do I have trouble in life? Well, when the seals are open, you remember the first 4 seals only pertain to Christians. Because what do you find out? You have trouble, Christian, because you are a Christian. So one thing is, you're going to be attacked because you're a Christian. But then you say, then you're going to face everything else that the world also faces. And then we saw, after the seals were opened, remember the 7th seal opened up the 7 thunders. The thunders were announcements from God to tell the rest of the world, really, who He is. Announcing to people, I am God. Then we saw the woman about to give birth and giving birth. And of course we recognize that the woman was the nation of Israel, okay? Trying to give birth to Jesus. So Jesus then comes, and once Jesus has come, Satan is defeated. Because Satan is defeated, he realizes the only thing he can do is make war against those who aren't protected. And so he goes to war against the rest of the world. That's where we are today. We left Satan last time at the shore of the sea. Let's go to that. And the dragon stood on the shore of the sea. By sea here, we're really thinking of the sea of humanity. Now you say, well, where do I get sea of humanity out of this? The place where you can see that directly in the book of Revelation, because it tells you that. I'm not guessing at this. The place you can get that directly is in Revelation 17. Let's go there. We're going to read more of this later on where you're going to see it's the same context, but it says, the waters you saw where the prostitute is seated, we haven't met her yet, are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. Okay? So the waters are the sea of humanity. Now, people are living at this time. Who is the dominating power? Rome. Rome is clearly in charge of everything going on in that area of the world. And the people are wondering, why is Rome so powerful? The reason we know is because, where did the beast come? What's the beast doing? He's getting his power from Satan himself. And the beast is going to be Rome. All right? So we're going to get very specific to Rome. Let's go back to our text, and you're going to see it. I'm just trying to give you the quick preview. Revelation 13, I saw a beast coming out of the sea. All right? This is a government. Governments come out of the sea of humanity. All governments come from us, we the people. He had 10 horns. 10 is a symbol of power, and horn is a symbol of power. So this looks like a very powerful creature, right? And he had 7 heads, means complete authority, with 10 crowns on his horns, and each head had a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like a bear, and a mouth like a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne. Who's the dragon? That's Satan. We met him earlier. Where does Rome get its authority? From Satan himself. Now, you see, the other parts had dealt with the persecution of the Christians. Why do you suppose he's bringing the beast up about the power of Rome? What else were the Christians wrestling with? Conforming to the culture. When you're conforming to the culture, you need to know who you're consorting with, right? It's Satan himself that is empowering the Roman government. So Christians, don't get involved with this Roman government. Don't think that this government is the solution to your problems. One of the heads of the beast, now how many heads does it have? It has 7 heads, but one of the heads seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. Now, isn't that odd? Oh, we'll have fun with that. The whole world was astonished and followed the beast. Men worshiped the dragon because he'd given authority to the beast. They worshiped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can make war against him? Well, to help us understand who the beast is, we really need to look at Revelation itself, where the beast is clearly identified. So let's go back. Let me have you see a few things. We'll look at the Bible to identify who the beast is. I'm telling you it's Rome, but I want you to see that it's Rome. I'm going to back up to verse 9 of Revelation 17. I'm going to back up to verse 7. I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her. You see, we're talking about the same beast? This 7-headed, 10-horned beast? It's a 7-headed, 10-horned beast, a purple people eater. Right? We got it? Okay, we're together on this. The beast you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. The dwellers on earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. This calls for a mind with wisdom. Thank you. It isn't clear, is it? No, we got to think about this a little bit. So let's think about it. It's going to tell us the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. Now I'm going to tell you, in 70 AD, if you're reading this and somebody says to you, I'm talking about the city with 7 hills, what would you say? You would say Rome. There is no doubt he's talking about Rome here. In fact, I've got a little presentation here. I think. There it is. This is the walled city of Rome, the ancient walled city of Rome. There are 7 hills that are in the ancient walled city of Rome. It was called the city of the 7 hills. In fact, before it was called Rome, the Italians, because of their good nature, each had their own, not cities, but each had their own empires on each hill. And they finally united and formed the city of Rome when the 7 hills were united. So you need to understand that to a person living at that time, when you said the city with the 7 hills, they're thinking Rome. I want you to think like a 70 AD person. This is clearly Rome. Let's go back. If I can get us back to the right place. Whoops, I'm still at the wrong place. This is where I want to be. The 7 hills are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he does, he must remain for only a little while. Now, let's see what this is. The beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. Makes perfect sense when you understand what's going on with Rome. People at this time would have been right there with it. I want you to look at this list of Roman rulers. 5 are Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. 1 is, Vespasian. Another's yet to come, Titus. And another belongs to the 7, but he's the 8th, Domitian. We okay with this? He's counting the rulers of Rome. This actually tells you when the book was written, doesn't it? It was written during the time of Vespasian. Now I got to tell you, this is kind of interesting because Vespasian is the father of, Vespasian, yes, is that right? The father of Titus and Domitian. Who's the one that destroys that destroys Jerusalem in 70 AD? Titus is, because Vespasian is ruling at the time and had to go back to take over Rome. Now we're going to talk about these others over here in a minute. I just want you to be clear on what's going on. Domitian is going to be the 8th. Domitian is referred to as the 8th because he's like the 7 and he's going to his destruction, but he's not there yet. Let's go back to our text, see what we're talking about. This calls for a mind with wisdom. We're trying to become wise. 7 kings, 5 of whom were fallen. That's through Nero. 1 is Vespasian. The other has not yet come, Titus. When he does, he must remain for a little while. Then, an 8th belongs to the 7. That's Domitian. Got it? Get it? Got it? Good. Some of you recognize the one who was and is not. Okay, we're going to talk about that. because it relates to their persecution, the way that they were persecuting people. Nero was the first emperor who actually executed Christians. They thought they were done with Nero, so he's not. But then he's resurrected in Domitian, who again persecutes Christians. So the thing in view is the persecutor of the Christians, because that's what the book is talking about. But I want to convince you that this is going on here. And to convince you of that, you need to look at another book. We need to look a little bit at Daniel. Now I'm going to start in Daniel 2:37. In Daniel 2:37, what you have is Daniel has a dream about a king Nebuchadnezzar who is the king of Babylon. And you'll see where I'm going on this, just stay with me. You, O king, that's you, Nebuchadnezzar, are the King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the might, and the glory. In other words, you're in charge. That's Babylon. So Nebuchadnezzar is king of Babylon. You're the head of gold. After another kingdom inferior to you shall arise after you, and yet a third kingdom of bronze who shall rule over all the earth. And there shall be a fourth kingdom strong as iron, because iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. And like iron that crushes, it shall break and crush all these. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth kingdom is like iron. I want you to realize it is a divided kingdom, but some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with the soft clay. That's a perfect description of Rome. This is very strong, but they relied on the client kings to do their work for them, so their weakness was in relying on the client kings. The toes of the feet are partly in iron, partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. The important thing I want you to see, in the days of those kings, of the fourth kingdom, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will the kingdom be left to another people. During the time of the Romans, what's going to happen? Christ is going to come. So it's clearly saying the fourth kingdom we're going to identify as Rome, because that's when Christ comes. Now, I want to get more specific with the same language that we saw in Revelation. We having fun yet? We okay with this? This is a lot of fun, because once you understand it, it makes perfect sense. I want to go to Daniel chapter 7. And we're going to start in verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions of his head as he lay in his bed. He wrote down the dream. Okay. I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, the sea of humanity. Four great beasts came out of the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. Then I looked, and its wings were plucked off. It was lifted from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of man was given to it. Babylon, lion. Behold, another beast, a second one like a bear. Notice we're going in the reverse order from the way Revelation was. We're talking about the bear. We're talking about the second kingdom. It was raised up on one side because this is the Medo-Persian Empire. It was ruled initially by Cyrus the Mede, but he formed an alliance with the Persians. So it's raised up on one side in this picture because the Mede was initially stronger, but it became equal to the Persian Empire. It had 3 ribs in its mouth. Between its teeth it was told, "Arise, devour much flesh." After this I looked, and behold, another like a leopard. A leopard. That's just what we saw in Revelation. But you see, what's going on is Daniel is looking forward, and Revelation is looking backward. So Daniel, he's going, there's going to be a lion, a bear, and a leopard. John in Revelation sits there and he goes, there's a lion, a bear, and a leopard. But he lists them as leopard, bear, and lion, doesn't he? Because he's looking back at them. Now you'd say, leopard, what kind of description is that? That's a description of Greece. Because under Alexander the Great, what did he do? He very swiftly moved through and conquered land all the way to the Indus River. So the leopard is Greece. This is the bear. With 4 wings of a bird on its back, after Alexander dies, his kingdom is broken up, divided among 4 of his generals. And the beast had 4 heads, in other words, the 4 generals, and dominion was given to it. And after this, I saw in the night visions, behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong, and had iron teeth. Remember the iron we talked about earlier? We're coming right back to this. It devoured and broke into pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. It's different from all the beasts. It had 10 horns. Okay? Now he's describing in here as 10 horns. He's going to use horns as the kings. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. All right, let's get our numbering right. In Daniel, we're going to number them this way because, frankly, John is obsessed with the number 7 in the book of Revelation. It's not just me. It's because John did it. It's not my fault that I keep talking about 7, okay? Notice how he numbers them. He still numbers them the same down through number 5. But after Nero died, there was a revolution because they didn't know who could take Nero's place. And the generals, Galba was the general, I think, that was in Spain at the time, decided he was going to be emperor. These 3 together, Galba, Otho, and Vitellius, only ruled for 18 months total. So there was a great furor. Then Vespasian came to power. So in Daniel's numbering, Domitian is number 11. In John's numbering, Domitian's number 8. We're going to see why he's got to be number 8. John wants him to be number 8, so he makes him number 8 because of the symbolism of 7. We okay with that? Okay. Now, because it's a beautiful thing to see. Let's go back to our text and see what I'm saying now. Vespasian, if he comes to power as the father, Domitian knows that he will eventually be emperor if his brother dies. Domitian is power hungry and really wants to be emperor. Okay. I want to be here. Now, it was different It had 10 horns. Remember, those are the 10 emperors. I considered the horns. There came up among them another horn, a little one. Who's that? That's Domitian. Before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. Who are those? The 3 missing emperors, Galba, Otho, and Vitellius. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. That's the horn we're talking about is Domitian. As I looked, thorns were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow. The hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning fire. Because what you need to know is a stream of fire issued, came out before him. Of course, who is this? This is God. God is sitting in judgment on Rome here. 1,000 upon 1,000 served him, 10,000 times 10,000. That's just meant to be a big number. The court said in judgment, the books were opened. This is not the end of time. This is when God says, I've had enough of Domitian. I looked then because the sound of the great words that the horn was speaking. Who did Domitian think he was? He thought he was God. Does that upset God? A little bit, yeah. God doesn't like other people to think that they're God. That's when he gets most upset with us, is when we think that we're in charge. The beast was killed, and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions, the clouds of heaven, one like the Son of Man. He came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. So the picture is that God is really in charge of the nations. So Christian, you think you're making friends by being nice to the Roman government? You think the Roman government is your friend? I'm going to tell you, it's not your friend. It's motivated by Satan himself, and you don't need to associate with this government. You need to stay away from it because it's powered by the beast, and the beast is Satan. Now, are we understanding? Are we okay with this? So what we're talking about is the Roman government itself, with Domitian pictured as the 8th. Now let's talk about why.
Question, Ken?
Sure.
What do you mean by stay away from the government?
I mean, don't conform. I don't mean, obviously Christ says, give unto Caesar what's due Caesar. I'm saying that some of the Christians were saying, you know, it's okay to offer things to idols, because even though I'm a Christian, I understand that those idols are just fake anyway. So I'm going to let the Roman government think that I'm really following them, but I'm not. In my heart, I know. You see how we could easily reason that? In your heart, you know that this isn't going to hurt you, so you're going to go ahead and do it because you're a Christian, because you know that you'll be okay. I don't ever reason that way, do you? I can do this. It's perfectly legal for me to do this. And, you know, I don't need to just stand out like a sore thumb in this, you know, when they ask, am I a Christian? I don't have to say I'm a Christian. I could say, no, I'll live to fight another day. I don't need to die on this hill. That's the logic. Why is Domitian pictured as number 8? He's pictured as number 8 because 7 means complete. So if you've completed the week, you've gone 1 through 7, then what's number 8? 8 is the new start, isn't it? 8 to them meant resurrection.
Now was Domitian 8?
Domitian was number 8. He's 10 in Daniel's counting, but in John's obsessive counting with the use of 7, he's 8. Because John deliberately eliminated the 3 minor emperors of Rome, minor Caesars, to make sure that Domitian was number 8, because he wanted him to be 8, because Domitian is the resurrection of whom? Of Nero. Also, he wants to compare Domitian to whom? To Christ. Because do you realize that Christ has a number that the early Christians gave to him? In the books called the Sibylline Oracles, which was written by a bunch of people in about around 150 to 200 AD, they gave Christ a number. The number they gave to Christ, they called Christ, he is the 888. 3 means a spiritual number, right? So 3 eighths means he is our spiritual resurrection. Christ is referred to as the 888. So it's only fitting to refer to the resurrected evilness itself as Domitian as number 8. Now he's not going to be an 888 because he's not a spiritual being, but he is a resurrected evil that we thought we got rid of when we got rid of Nero. Because Nero was horrible. Nero spent 24 hours killing Christians in the Colosseum while 15,000 people looked on and cheered while he hung them on crosses and executed them in horrible ways and killed over 600 in one day. That's what Nero did. Christians had reasons not to like him. All right. Should we go back to the text? Oh, this is so much fun. The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies. Isn't that true? What's the blasphemy? Saying that he's God. That's exactly what the Roman emperors did. Actually, Domitian was the first one to demand that people refer to him as God. The others said, you can think of us as God, but Domitian issued a decree empire-wide that says, I am God, you will refer to me as God. That's what upset the Christians. Because if they're going to be loyal Christians, they can't do that. He exercises his authority for 42 months. What is that? What's 42? It's 3.5. It's half of 7. What's that saying? Does he exercise his authority forever or completely? No, it's half of 7. It's a broken 7. So it only has authority for a period of time. You need to realize when you're being persecuted, it does not go on forever. You also need to realize if you're a friend of the Roman government, that government isn't going to go on forever. So if you said, I'm going to go ahead and worship him because I know in my heart I'm really not worshiping him, you're going to be in trouble. He opened his mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and its dwelling place and those who live in heaven. He was given power, I love this, he was given power to make war against the saints. Who's really in charge? God is. Who allowed him to do this? God did. And to conquer them. Conquer them in his viewpoint. Because he thinks that he's actually killing Christians. He was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the book of life belonging to the Lamb that was slain from the creation of the world. He who has an ear, let him hear. If anyone's going to go into captivity he's going to go. If anyone's to be killed with the sword he will be killed. What did he just tell us? Not a happy message, I have to tell you. You're asking, God, I'm being persecuted. When am I going to be released from this? Well, some of you are still going to be taken captive. Some of you are still going to be killed. You're not being released in that way, are you? Have you ever talked to a person who has a very serious illness? They're asking, why am I still here? Have you ever asked yourself, what's my purpose on this world, in this world? Why am I here? What is going on? If you need to be killed, you will be killed. If you need to be taken captive, you will be taken captive. This is not a cheerful message. In fact, look what it says here. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of the saints. I'd say so. When God tells me being a Christian isn't going to save you from this stuff, I need some encouragement. Verse 11. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. 2 horns. 2 is our symbol of, when you have 2 witnesses, you have a powerful witness. But he's not like the 10-horn ones. He's not as powerful as the government himself, but it looks like he has power. And horns are a symbol of power. But he looks like a lamb. A lamb is looking like a religious symbol. But he speaks like a dragon. This is the religion from hell. If you're in 70 AD, what's the religion from hell? Emperor worship. Right? He exercised all the authority of the first beast on his behalf and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. What does emperor worship do? It says, you're going to worship the emperor, you're going to worship this government. Look at this. Whose fatal wound had been healed. Don't you love that terminology? What's the fatal wound? Nero. Had been healed because it's Domitian. You thought you'd killed it. It was a fatal wound. Usually if I tell you you have a fatal wound, you don't say it's been healed. I kind of love that. Who else had a fatal wound that had been healed? Jesus did. Do you see how Jesus is being compared to Domitian? Because the Christian has to make a choice in this life, right? Both of them have fatal wounds and both have been healed. Which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose Jesus or are you going to choose false religion? He performed great and miraculous signs. In other words, this is showing you that it's religion because of the signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven on earth in full view of men. That's just what a religion would do. That's what Jesus had been doing, wasn't it? You think of Elijah, Elisha. Their religion had been doing these things. Because of the signs he was given power to do on behalf of the first beast, he deceived the inhabitants of the earth. He ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Do you realize Domitian demanded that his image be set up so people could worship him? His image was put on all the coins of the Roman Empire. He was the first one that demanded his image on the coins. Before that they could, and some did, but he was the one who demanded all Roman coinage have his image on it. He was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast so that it could speak and caused all who refused to worship the beast, the image, to be killed. He forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or his forehead, so no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. In other words, what's this mark that's being put on people? Did God put a mark on people? Of course he does. He says, I have marked you, right, as my people. He puts his mark where? On our forehead. Remember, we learned about that earlier. Because I want your hearts and your minds to follow me. We are marked for Jesus. Who are these people marked for? The devil himself. That's who they're marked for. Do you see the comparison again between what emperor worship is doing and what Jesus did? That's the comparison that's meant to happen here. So we now have two beasts. We have the sea beast and the earth beast. The sea beast, just so you're keeping track here, is Rome, the government itself. The earth beast, because all false religions come from the earth, not from spiritual, not from God. The earth beast is false religion. Now, we haven't met all the characters in this play yet. We're going to meet the third character, the prostitute, later on. But for now, we've got these two beasts. This calls for wisdom. Yeah, it does. We had to think about this a while, didn't we? But now it makes sense to us. It calls for wisdom. If anyone has insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number. Man's number, by the way, is 6. Why would man's number be 6? Because he's short of completion. But if you want to make that 6 into a spirit, who's the spirit that is falling short over and over? That's the 666. That has to be the mark of Satan. So you have the 666 as Satan, who falls short of 7, and Jesus, the 888, who is resurrected. His number is 666. When you numbered things, you gave them power. Now, I found a little cartoon. I thought you'd like this. This kind of bothered me when I saw it, because it's called The Markdown of the Beast at Apocalypse Pets. Now, it bothers me a lot because obviously the cartoonist didn't understand what he did here. Satan would never mark things down to the 333, right? Because 3 is a spiritual number, it's God's number. So the 333 is God. But the cartoonist didn't understand that. But I thought it was still funny. Okay. Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? Okay. I want to get back to our text. Revelation 14 is beautiful when it says, but John says, then I looked, and there before me was the Lamb. Now notice, this lamb is different from the one who looked like a lamb, wasn't it? Notice the beautiful contrast being made here. I see Jesus the Lamb now, and who's with him? Who are the 144,000? Remember we did that earlier? They're the Christians throughout time, the 12 times the 12 raised to a spiritual power, so 3 zeros after it. Who had his name and his Father's name written on their foreheads. These are the followers. I heard a sound from heaven like the roar of rushing waters, a loud peal of thunder. The sound I heard was like that of harpists playing their harps. They sang a new song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and the elders. No one could learn the song except those who had been redeemed from the earth. These are God's people. God's people know that there's a song that the rest of the world does not know. These are those who did not defile themselves with women, for they kept themselves pure. It's not talking about physical defilement with women. It's talking about that you're a virgin in a religious sense. Who are the virgins that stand before God? We are. The church, prepared before God, God's people, are presented as the pure bride before Christ. How do we end up being pure? Because we've been washed in the blood. Otherwise, we would not be pure. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. That's us. They were purchased from among men. We are purchased from among men. We're offered as fruits to God and the Lamb. That's us. No lie is found in our mouths. They're blameless. Why are we blameless? Because Jesus has taken away those things that would blame us. I saw another angel. He had an eternal gospel to proclaim to those who live on the earth, to every nation, tribe, language, and people. He said in a loud voice, fear God and give him glory. In other words, he's talking to the people on the earth, not the people in heaven. To the people who are still not Christians, he says, fear God, give him the glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. You need to realize judgment is coming. Worship him who made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the springs of the water. A second angel followed and said, fallen is Babylon the Great. We're going to meet more of this Babylon the Great, which made all the nations drink the maddening wine of her adulteries. A third angel followed and said, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives a mark, he too will drink the wine of God's fury, which has been poured full strength into the cup of his wrath. He'll be tormented in the presence of the holy angels and the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment rises forever. There is no rest for those who worship the beast. This calls for patient endurance on the part of the saints who obey God's commandments and remain faithful to Jesus. What calls for patient endurance? Endurance because it looks like the beast is in power. The beast is not in power. We are the ones in power. I hear the voice saying, blessed are those who die in the Lord. They will rest from their labor. Their deeds will follow them. And then we see this, and we see that Jesus comes out, and we see two kinds of things that go on. One is the reaping with the sickle, which is what you do with wheat. So the harvest is ripe, and he's saying, you're ready to come and be with me. And this happens at different times throughout history. It will eventually happen at the very end of the world, but it happens over and over when God's people are redeemed. And of course, there's another judgment that's going on. This is more of a judgment on the people who, gathering the clusters of grapes, its grapes are ripe. It means overripe. I've given them enough time. He gathered its grapes and threw them in the winepress of God's wrath. So it's saying, you need to realize that God will take care of this. He is the one in charge of both beasts. And this is just saying, this is just a picture given to us, much like the picture that's given in Isaiah 63. Who is this that comes from Edom? This is where it's talking about the destruction of Edom. In crimson garments from Bozrah, he who is splendid in his apparel, marching in the greatness of his strength. It is I, speaking in righteousness, mighty to save. Why is your apparel red, your garments like he who treads in the winepress? I have trodden the winepress alone, and from the peoples no one was with me. I trod them in my anger, trampled them in my wrath. Their lifeblood spattered on my garments and stained all my apparel. For the day of vengeance was in my heart, and my year of redemption had come. I looked, and there was no one to help. I was appalled, and there was no one to uphold. So my own arm brought me salvation, and my wrath upheld me. God's saying, I looked around, there was nobody else that could do this. But I'm telling you, the same picture of the winepress. God will redeem his people and redeems us, and God will punish those who are wicked. It calls for endurance on our part because we don't understand what's going on in this life. But there have been throughout history governments who have been totally motivated by evil. Those governments God has destroyed. He will continue to do that. And all wicked governments will be brought to an end. Okay?
You know, that's what I love, you know, as I watch the things that are going on in the world. I have to keep going back and be discouraged, but I have to keep going back and say, I know who God is. I know who's in control of this whole mess. God knows what's happening. All I have to do is keep my eyes on Him, not on this.
And that's the message we need to leave with today. We need to keep our eyes on God. We need to keep our eyes focused on Jesus, the 888, because the 666 is not anything we want to deal with. All right, we'll see you next week.